What is up, Raffleitos? Welcome back to my channel. We are back at Houston. We're going to take a look at the new 4 Points Hotel by Sheraton and the new developments here on Heroes Highway. Now, I've actually come up this street. This is Caneview Avenue in South Roosevelt Gardens. That's Caneview Avenue looking west. So there seems as if there's going to be some construction here. It seems as if the road is going to be widened. I think they've already announced that on a billboard. Right, there was a billboard across the street. I think we showed that last time we were here about a month ago, that the government had put out plans to build a new 4-lane, or at least upgraded road along this Caneview Avenue. So Caneview Avenue is going to become something like Aubrey Barker Road. So they're going to make Caneview Avenue like Aubrey Barker Road. That's looking north towards the intersection at Aubrey Barker Road and Mandela Avenue, where there's that traffic circle. We're going to talk a little bit more about traffic circles later on. And this is looking south along Heroes Highway towards the other traffic circle at the interchange, the interchange between Eccles and so on. But this is why we're here. We're here to look at this new 4 Points Hotel. We've been looking at this hotel for the last year or so, and it's traced or tracked its development since it was a hole in the ground. We saw the frame go up. It hasn't been built rapidly. It's actually been built quite slowly by, in comparison to other hotels. But progress has been consistent, and it's a lot nearer completion now than it was a year ago or several months ago. That blue tarp on the roof tells you that there's still some construction work going on, and the blue on the windows, they haven't removed the window wrapping. But what they've done since we've been here, the last few years, they've added all the windows. So now all the windows have been added to the top floor of the building. And it seems as if on the external side, the building is complete. I don't know if these are the final colors. Don't know if they're going to add some paint highlights or additional colors to the building. For this building, there was never really a billboard that showed, an artist's depiction of what the building would look like on completion. So we've had to wait to see what it looks like. What they've done since the last time we've been here is they've added a road, an entrance. That's interesting. So here, they seem to have added an entrance, a road. Now this used to be an embankment on the other side of Caneview Avenue. So that's Caneview Avenue. The sign says South Roosevelt Gardens. So the next village over is South Roosevelt Gardens. But where we're standing now is actually Houston. And the government has announced plans to build a road here. So my guess is that this is in fact the government's construction project and not the hotels. As you can see, what they did with this embankment on the other side is they put up these massive high tension power lines, and those posts, those pillars that support the high tension power line are located on the embankment on the other side of Heroes Highway. So this can't be the road that they're building because it would run right into those poles for the power line, right? Those power lines go all the way out to the power ship, which sits on the Demerara River. I've shown you in the past the power ship out there at Meadowbank, and that power ship has been supplying auxiliary power to the Georgetown area for the last 6 months or so. However, it doesn't seem to have ended blackouts, but we'll talk about that also later. So what's happened here is that they seem to have created on the embankment on the other side, that is on the east side where we are now, they've created this road, which I assume is going to become a paved road, unless they're going to put other high tension power lines along this road. But it allows us to get closer, and let's just see the entrance. This is apparently the entrance to the Four Points Hotel. So this is where the Four Points Hotel entrance will be. In previous trips to see this hotel, the closest we could get was actually here on Caneview Avenue. That was the closest we could get last time we were here. But now they've built this new, what appears to be side road parallel to Caneview Avenue, and back, I guess, continuing east, allows us to get closer to the hotel. So this is what the hotel looks like. This, I assume, is going to be the main entrance to the building, and the lobby probably is on the inside of that building. I've gotten accustomed to tall ceilings in modern buildings. I don't know if that trend is ever going to take hold in Guyana, but what it seems is if the entrance area, see the height of the ceiling, the height of that canopy is what I'd expect on the inside, but I don't know yet if that is what is happening. Now, at the rear, eastern end of the building, there is this massive cube or cuboid structure, which I assume is going to become their convention center, dining center, and so on. I'm assuming, but maybe not. There are no windows to the building. You can see it's just a massive cube, so it could probably be just storage, or it could be power plant. But this is what has happened, and this road that they're building here seems to, at least at this point, give us access, better access to the construction site, so you can see exactly what's going on. Couldn't get this close in the past. So this is 4 Points by Sheraton on the, 11th day of September 2025, 11th September 2025. Now, I don't know when this building is scheduled to complete and whether it's on schedule or behind schedule, but what I know is that it's a lot closer to completion now than it was several months ago when I started showing it. I assume that there's going to be a wall. So at the end, you can see there is a wall, and I'm assuming that wall is going to continue around the corner and all along this side of the complex. Still a whole lot of, I guess, landscaping, construction to be done, parking lots to be built, and so on. So it seems as if there's going to be at least a few more months. Some people were telling me that December is the construction, the schedule for construction to be completed. That's the lobby, the entrance to the lobby area, and a whole lot of landscaping, I guess, as well as in groundwork. They had to put in sewage lines, and well, that's one of the first things they did. But I saw them doing some excavation work at the front some weeks ago. It led me to believe that they were doing some additional work to their utilities. So based on what I can see here, maybe December would be a good time to expect completion. It's now September, so maybe another 3 more months before this hotel can be completed and open. In the meantime, they have opened the Courtyard Marriott at Timeri, Sheraton International Airport. Now, I used to visit Courtyard Marriott every month or so, but I haven't been for the last 6 months because after completion, the last couple of times we visited, the building appeared to be completed, but nothing on the outside, no change was visible on the outside. So it seems as if they've been working on the inside of the building, and now, as of August, I think in the middle of August, the building was officially open. That is the Courtyard Marriott at Timeri. So the next time we visit, which will be towards the end of this month, we'll be able to go inside that Courtyard Marriott, new Courtyard Marriott Hotel at Timeri, and I'll be able to show you the inside of the building as well as the amenities on the outside. Maybe grab some lunch or dinner and make an assessment of the menu. But that is improvement. Unfortunately, prices are still extremely high, which leads me to speculate about the price per night to stay at this hotel, because they have chosen to charge $400 a night to stay at the new Courtyard Marriott in Timeri, at Timeri Airport, at Sheraton Airport. And if you did a search for the price to stay at any of the major airports in the world, Heathrow, for example, or JFK Airport, any of the hotels around Heathrow or JFK Airport, and there are a few of them, you will see the prices somewhere around $140, $150 a night, 140, 150 US dollars per night. So charging $400 US a night at Sheraton International Airport seems rather exorbitant to me. But I'm also going to discuss that in future. So I have a lot of topics to cover, not the least of which is the continued discussion of the quality of infrastructure works being built in Guyana and the outcome of the last presidential election, which is in fact contested in many ways, but not as vigorously as the previous election cycle. So we're going to talk about that in a future video. But this is what is happening here at the new Sheraton Hotel, 4 Points by Sheraton, here in Guyana, at Houston in Georgetown, Guyana. We're back on the Heroes Highway. And we're headed towards the new bridge, the entrance ramp to the new bridge. We want to see if they finish constructing that roundabout and how that is coming along. So that's where we're headed. But for now, this is an update on 4 Points by Sheraton. A lot of progress has been made, mostly on the grounds. So you can see here on the outside of the building and on the compound, it seems as if they've done a lot of work to level the ground, and I guess eventually they'll be building parking lots and landscaping and so on. So piles of sand and chipped stone and so on still around. This is what I was saying when I mentioned excavation and utilities and so on. So this is what they've done. Last time I was here, you couldn't see it clearly, but they had excavated. You can see there are some pipes, some huge pipes on the ground that's been buried there. So about over the last 6 or so months, behind all of the bush that was here, I could see that they were doing some excavation work and working on utilities and so on. And I said, the way it's done usually is all the utility lines are put in the ground before construction begins. But now, while the project is coming to an end or close to an end, you can see they're putting in what might be drains or utilities. But they might be making this into a major entrance, in which case they would kind of have to make this into an exit off of Heroes Highway. So they're putting in what seems to be huge pipes. I don't know if those are simply drainage pipes or if they are sewage pipes, but those are being put in here. And I can see the framework for a bridge. So, right, so I can see there is the metal framework. I don't know if you can see it in the video here, right? But there is a metal, right? There's a metal framework for a bridge. But that's my assumption. So there's some construction still to be done here, and it seems as if that is going to be the major activity. So this apparently is going to become one of the entrances to the building, which is unusual because I guess you have to be careful when you're entering and exiting a major road such as this Heroes Highway. Usually you need a kind of exit lane and then a layoff. But this is what is happening here, guys. This is what is happening at Heroes Highway, right? This is the 4 Points by Sheraton Hotel. This is the southern corner of the building. You can see that they still have some blue plastic on the glass on the ground floor. So construction still on the way, still in progress here at Houston, but gives you an idea of what's being done and how this project is shaping up. So there is going to be an entrance along Heroes Highway and an entrance on the new Caneview Avenue side of the building. So that's it, guys. That's what's up in this neck of the woods. You have nearby next door, that's the Sheriff International Mall, which has been, I guess, stalled that level of construction since the last time we were here. That's looking north towards Georgetown on Heroes Highway. And here, this is the new headquarters of the Ministry of Housing. Right, this started out as a sheriff hospital. I think a sheriff group is building a hospital here, and then they later converted it, I guess, through some arrangement with the government. This is now being converted into government building, and behind, again, that is the headquarters of the Guyana Water Authority Inc. That building seems to have been brought closer to completion. It seems as if they've added all the windows. It's still only a box without any architectural detail. But we're gonna wait for completion to see exactly what it turns out to be. So yes, Sheriff Group started out as a security firm getting contracts from the government to provide basically watchmen Now their armed security service provides not just watchmen but armed security guards, and they have now returned to botanical gardens. So the last time I was in the botanical gardens, I noticed that sheriff security is now responsible for the botanical gardens. As they say, elections have consequences. The people who help to elect the government are going to be rewarded. Sheriff security apparently is now reaping the benefits of supporting the government, and they have contracts, expanded contracts, security contracts, and construction contracts, and so on. But of course, that is something for another video. On the other side, we are in Warehouse Central. So, as I explained before, when I first started showing you developments on Heroes Highway, all of these lands, these vacant lands, looked promising. It looked like, we're gonna have major housing developments, maybe high-rise hotels, maybe some golf courses, some gated communities, because all of this land that is opened up by the highway is prime real estate. Come to find, now in 2025, these are all warehouses. There's no luxury condominiums, no luxury hotels, no gated communities, no golf courses or tennis courts, state parks. All of it is now warehouses. So I've called this area, unfortunately, Warehouse Central, because all that is being constructed along Heroes Highway is warehouses. And these are just a few. These are just a few of the warehouses that have been constructed so far. And every time we come back, more warehouses are under construction. So this is partly the foundation for another, what I assume is going to be warehouse here along Heroes Highway. There is those two structures, warehouse structures along David Rose Street. They have been up for the last year or so. And then there is this warehouse, a 3-story warehouse that has made some significant progress since the last time we were here. That is actually quite exactly opposite the new government buildings and the Sheraton Hotel, 4 Points by Sheraton. So this is what is happening, guys. This is what is happening along Heroes Highway. These are the new developments along Heroes Highway in 2025. When I used to come along a year or so ago, when I would walk along this highway, it reminded me of the 401 in Canada. So those of you who have used the 401 outside of Mississauga and Toronto, so let's say heading east towards Guelph and Kitchener, you will see, this is back in the day, like 12, 13 years ago, since the last time I was in Canada. You would see that 12 or 13 years ago, a lot of vacant land on the, north side of the 401, past Mississauga, heading west. And it looks like, this area looks like that, looks like the area along the 401. However, what I imagined would happen over time is you would get high quality housing being built in this area. Massive housing divisions and condominiums and so on. What we got instead is Warehouse Central. We have warehouses as far as the eye can see. And for those of you wondering, why would the government build warehouses here on the prime real estate opened up by these lands, your guess is as good as mine, but I assume it has to do with the oil and gas industry. So apparently, there is a demand for warehouse storage for the oil and gas industry. And instead of zoning, providing a zone of the country where the oil and gas operations is restricted to operate, the government, with its lack of planning, has allowed oil and gas industry, which has a lot of money to invest, to take over Georgetown, to take over the capital city. So if you look along Water Street, that is along the riverbank in Georgetown, you have Halliburton, you have Schlumberger, you have G-Boat, and all of the other auxiliary parts of the oil industry taking over the waterfront in Georgetown and along the river. And here, all of the auxiliary storage for the oil and gas industry, that is the warehouses that will eventually supply the materials for the industry, that is all taking over Heroes Highway and the new lands that are being developed along Heroes Highway, which is unfortunate because it is a time when we could plan. If we were thinking ahead, we could plan for the development of the city. But apparently the planners are either asleep or have decided on other plans, that is to abandon Georgetown to the oil industry, and perhaps they're going to put their planning into Silica City. I haven't yet visited Silica City, but from what reports I've heard so far, it does not represent any brilliant planning. It's just more of the same type of thinking that we find elsewhere in the country. The lack of proper, efficient layout of roads and utilities and so on, all of that will continue in Silica City because there was no effort made to implement future forward-looking planning or experts in the field who have studied city planning. None of that was implemented. So again, complete disappointment. And people have argued, why am I so negative in some of these videos? The reason why is because they have consequences. Bad plans, bad infrastructure affects the entire country negatively. It actually costs lives. I said I would get back in a later video to talk about roundabouts, but since the completion of the roundabout at Ogle, right, this new highway at the intersection of the new highway, East Coast Bypass Road, and the train line or the railway road, they built a roundabout, and there has already been a fatal accident at that roundabout. It's been less than a month since that roundabout is open, maybe a little more than a month, and they've already had a fatal accident at that roundabout. And I spoke about that in a previous video. So people are saying, yeah, you're negative. The reason why I'm pointing out the flaws, as I have in several videos in the past, the flaws about this intersection, I'm over and over again pointing out the flaws of this intersection. What you see is that there is no turning lane, right? So you built a modern road, but there's no planning, there's no turning lane, and what you get eventually is backup of traffic into the fast lane, right? Because cars have no space to get out of the way, so they back up into the fast lane, as is happening right now. Right on screen you can see it, right? Cars with their lining and their rear sticking out into the fast lane, and that disrupts traffic. And all that needs to be done is they needed to build a turning lane into the median, and that is what most of my criticism of the infrastructure is about safety. It's about hazards that could eventually cost lives. It's about my disappointment with the kind of planning that's going into new development in Guyana when we have the opportunity to build some futuristic, real world-class infrastructure. We have the money to do it, we have the land, the space to do it, but instead of employing the people who are qualified to do it, we make it into a partisan